himself.
And Rome is about to unleash a harsh brutality to remind everyone of their power. The last day of life for Jesus of Nazareth is the epitome of man's brutality. His anguished death on a cross becomes the symbol of a religion that spread around the world. But many of the scenes burned into our minds aren't written in the Bible. Our picture of Jesus' death comes from Michelangelo, Tintoretto, artists working more than 1,000 years after that momentous day. But it's modern science and archaeology that get us closer to what actually happened during Jesus' last hours. They scrutinize the Gospel's description, which is terse. The Bible begins recording the events of Jesus' last day around dawn.
They put a purple robe on him, then twisted together a crown of thorns and set it on him. And they began to call out to him, "Hail, King of the Jews."
Jesus from the very beginning was talking about the kingdom of God. It's no surprise that they wind up crucifying him as the King of the Jews.
The Romans designed crucifixion to be a public humiliation.
Crucifixion was a deterrent that was used by the Romans to keep the Pax Romana, the Roman peace. And so all aspects of crucifixion were public,
including Jesus' brutal beating.
They spit on him and took the staff and struck him on the head again and again.
In addition to mockery and beating, the Gospels mention one other detail.
Above his head they placed the written charge against him. "This is Jesus, the King of the Jews."
Historians believe this sign would have been prominently displayed to let the local population know what crimes triggered this brutal punishment.
Carrying his own cross, he went out to the place of the skull.
But the cross Jesus carried, the ultimate symbol of Christianity, looks very different in past depictions. Today, most people think Jesus died on a cross shaped like a plus sign, called the Latin cross. But over the centuries, some artists have painted a flat-topped cross shaped like a T. With no other physical evidence, biblical archaeologist Jonathan Reed and master craftsman Kim Hicks will attempt to figure out the shape of the cross by building one themselves. They even use replicas of ancient tools.
The size of the wood is significant because not only does it have to carry the weight of someone, but it would also be expected to last for several crucifixions, years long, perhaps even decades long.
A few hours of hard labor, and they have a vertical post and crossbeam. But they're not sure how the two pieces come together. They know that Jesus was forced to march through the streets of Jerusalem. The path he took is never described. But through the ages, pilgrims have retraced his route for about a quarter mile to the city's outskirts. Artists have always portrayed Jesus dragging his entire crucifix. But Hicks and Reed want to find out just how hard it would be to carry the cross for that distance, and how the two pieces of wood were attached.
Wow, almost 120.
Together, the two pieces of the crucifix weigh 340 pounds. Hayati Akbas, an actor whose build resembles that of a first-century Galilean, will try to carry the entire crucifix.
That works. Okay, without any help now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Okay.
Come on, drag it a little bit.
Can you drag it?
I'll try.
That's as far as I can go without hurting my shoulder.
Okay, let's let it down.
And ribs.
This impossible?
No way. It's really, really heavy. I mean, it will break your shoulder. You will feel heavier and heavier and heavier.
400 yards?
No, maybe in heaven.
Making the trek across Jerusalem with the entire cross would have required superhuman strength. So Jesus probably only carried his crossbeam, called a patibulum.
Yeah, it is centered.
Okay.
To replicate the distance Jesus marched, Jonathan lays out a quarter-mile course for Hayati. Spotters will take the load if anything goes wrong.
How do you feel?
Feel all right. Little tension on my wrist, on my hands.
Within 75 yards, the weight of the patibulum takes its toll.
How are you doing now?
My arms are really hurting.
Really hurting now?
Yeah, and I feel the pain on my back. Uphill is very hard.
Okay.
You got it?
We got it.
Less than 150 yards into the march, Hayati gives out.
I was surprised actually how far he was able to carry that. I think one of the things we have to keep in mind is that there would have been a beating beforehand that I'm sure would have cut down on how far you would have been able to carry it.
Carrying the patibulum is brutal, but not impossible. However, if Jesus was already tied to his crossbeam when he arrived at the crucifixion site, how did they attach him to the vertical post?
The problem is if you have it like this...
The traditional Latin cross could be made with a saddle joint, but securing the joint is awkward because the victim's head gets in the way. Driving the hefty Roman nails would only be practical if the cross was laid flat on the ground. Archaeologists turn to ancient graffiti to unlock the missing piece of the post puzzle. Dating back to the 2nd century AD, it's the oldest archaeological find directly related to the crucifixion of Jesus.
This picture shows a crucified man, but with the head of a donkey facing away from us on the cross.
This crude sketch in plaster, written by a Greek slave in Rome, was meant to ridicule an early follower of Christ. But it's the cross itself that's most intriguing. It's low to the ground, has a footrest, and is shaped like a flat-top T. The T-shaped cross was ideal for routine executions. The vertical post could be left permanently in the ground.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, let's go.
If the patibulum had a hole in it, it could slip snugly onto the top of the support beam.
That's our hybrid.
This kind of joint would have provided a simple and efficient way to get Jesus onto the cross.
As we've been exploring the evidence of how the cross was used and formed, we realized the practicality of this joint is an obvious solution. It's easy on, easy off.
Recreation is the only method that allows Reed and Hicks to figure out how Jesus was crucified. Determining how he was fixed to the cross and what actually caused his death is even trickier.
One of the main problems is that the Bible itself isn't really all that detailed in its description. In the 3 synoptic Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, the only description we have is, "And they crucified him."
Archaeologists have found no physical evidence of Jesus' crucifixion.